Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. It's the Ancient One here, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. And I'm here with another video. I'm trying to be as consistent as possible, trying to get those results and those views up. But today's video is about the art of war, or how you can win the romance wars, or at the very least, avoid getting yourselves damaged in these relationships, which I call the romance wars. Ultimately, get a vasectomy, right? Get a vasectomy. What I'd like to do is today analyze the words from what I consider, quite frankly, a monumental figure, Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, and compare his strategy against what the counterpart is doing, right? In an attempt to somehow secure victory for you. Now, if you have bent the knee and you are in the dark dimension, or you are indeed what I call a bender, a bachelor, or a vasectomite, any man, in fact, whatever your categorization, whatever your classification, I assure you these words will ring true for you and they will be efficacious. So I'd suggest, unlike previous videos, that we take a very serious tone to these words and see how they apply, in your life. Now, in earnest, I would have loved to have given an overview of a man that I quite frankly consider the grandmaster of the deceptive arts. A man whose tactics, his strategies and philosophies that I have employed in my own life. I consider him, despite the fact that he's been dead for 2,500 years, a mentor and somebody whose example that I would love to follow. Indeed, I put him above all strategists, and I've read all kinds of strategists. Another Asian philosopher, Lao Tzu. I've read the works of Niccolo Machiavelli, a man who I revere quite highly. I have read the words of even Robert Greene, a modern day philosopher, and so forth. I've read thousands and thousands of books, if you can believe that, over a lifetime. And I'm still reading new books today. And if you add in the addition of audiobooks, which I love, you can add thousands more books to that list. I've even forgotten some of the books that I've read, and I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way. I'm merely trying to indicate the thoroughness with which I have researched this topic, and for me to land on this particular book and give him the status. This is my own perception of the situation, this is my understanding of the situation, I believe that Sun Tzu is in fact the grandmaster of the deceptive arts. And I implore you to not just read his words as we will today and analyze his words as we will today. I implore you to take them seriously and employ them as I have in every area of your life. I have used his strategies with my own family, my friends, colleagues. I use it at work all the time. And online, I've used it repeatedly. And indeed, I apply it on this platform every day. And I believe that his words will be especially useful to you while you are in a relationship, in a marriage, while you're dating, even in monk mode. Even in monk mode, because I know you're thinking about jumping back into those romance wars. And while you are in monk mode, I implore you to meditate on these words by the Grandmaster and apply them in your own life. In simple truth, as much as I'd love to give that overview, his history is mysterious, mythical, and uncertain, right? If that is not the truest expression of the deceptive arts itself, right? In its most quintessential and magnanimous form. The man is known to have lived, he is known to have died, but when and how and why is in itself a mystery. And yet the power of his words endures, right? What lives on are his teaching, his philosophy, his words. And that's what we are going to analyze. Not all, we're not going to read the whole book, but we are going to take excerpts from that book, and we're going to look at them today. And as we go with this channel, I want you to know that I will be introducing his philosophies and comparing them to your circumstances, my circumstances, and indeed the Romance wars. But what we believe about Sun Tzu, the grandmaster of the deceptive arts, is that he was a military strategist, an acclaimed general who has won and been in many battles and maybe lost a few. He is a philosopher, this we know. He is a writer, this we know because we have his words. Because of his military background, it's believed he was in fact a statesman, negotiating, dealing, interacting with high-level officials of other states, and indeed a trusted advisor and a known spy for the emperor. So he does indicate a high quality of life with higher society, but also a tremendous amount of strategizing and indeed a life of secrecy and, of course, deception. Now, we don't really know if all this is true or not, right? Because you must consider that he did die or is reported to have died over 2,500 years ago. And not only that, his words have been translated, I believe, absolutely accurately, right? It's not many books that were translated from a native language into many other languages and still maintained that accuracy, which makes it so difficult. If you are not familiar with old language and old grammar and old vocabulary with the ancient world, whence I came, then it can be quite difficult to make sense of these words and to see how they apply to you. But fortunately, I speak ancient fluently. and we'll be able to dissect these words for you, and not just that, and give them meaning to you. And I hope that I do the Grand Master some justice. Humbly, I take on this endeavor, right? But rather than telling you an uncertain history about the Grand Master himself, of one of which we will never know and we will never be able to prove. In truth, we don't even know if he died. This is the truth, right? No body was ever retrieved, and there is no burial site for Sun Tzu, right? We do have statues and images of him, and they endure along with his writings. So perhaps what I'd rather do is tell you about my own history, my own short history with this book, The Art of War. In truth, I believe that I'd always, in some small part, been a student and a practitioner of the deceptive arts, although since the first time I've read this book and read many other books, my powers have multiplied endlessly over the years. So, in my understanding of deception and the deceptive arts has become more nuanced, and I'd say a little bit more natural, right? When initially one had to pull a lot of strings in order to get to the right type of manipulation. Now I find that you can just pay most people to do what you want. So as I as I read these, well, before we read these words, right? I want you to know that they do have a particular specific meaning for me, right? They changed my life in a way that I really cannot describe. I practically live by these words, right? The way that this book came to me is perhaps a coincidence, a chance, a or maybe I was always destined to come across this book. It's difficult to say. I'm not really one who believes in metaphysics, manifestations, and that kind of thing, right? But there is an interesting weave, an interesting tale that goes to and how I came across this book and how it landed in my life, and quite frankly, never left, right? In truth, the first copy that I bought and read and memorized wasn't my copy, and it wasn't bought with my money, right? And this was really the first instance where I would very clearly say that I went out of my way to steal knowledge, right? I consider myself a thief of knowledge and ideas, right? Which I think makes me a very good listener and very attentive, right, to what people are saying, perhaps even sensitive to what they're saying. But if I am listening to a person who's richer, more knowledgeable, more capable, you can be sure I'm trying to steal your tactics and apply them in my life. But in truth, as a thief of ideas, I find that people are very happy to give you their ideas and then watch you use them and then give them credit and then say to them, you know what? I stole this idea from you. I got this from you and used it in my life, and it works. What do they say? Imitation is the best form of flattery. I find that it rings true all the time. So even today, I still remain a thief of ideas, and I sell those ideas as my own. I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it right now, right? So at the time that this book came into my life, I was 18, maybe 19 years old, a freshman at university, a time that I hold very dearly in my heart. So much knowledge, so much information, so many great scholars that shared so much with me, completely changed the person that I am in a way that I would never look back, right? So I'm deeply appreciative of that. But this was a time, you must remember, that was long before the internet, right? The age of the ancient one is not to be revealed, but just know that it is a very, very long time ago. And I was walking past what was a very popular bookstore at the time. And I was always in and out of bookstores, and I still am. It's still one of my favorite places. I really cannot walk past the bookshop without going in just to see what they have. It's something that I still do today, and I do it instinctively, right? So, but I didn't walk in this time. I was just walking past, and I happened to, stop and, glance at what they had, just for a brief moment, on the windowsill. Uh, and there it was in the section of philosophy, the art of war, right? And it was at a discount, at a tremendous discount, right? A discount at the time that I couldn't afford, right? So I went and told a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, who was really into Asian philosophy, and Asian politics, right? And they had been looking for this book. You must understand, this was before the internet, and you couldn't just order things. So if you saw something, that was it, right? Other bookshops would not have it, or they may or may not have it, right? Or they'll tell you, oh, we're getting it in 2 months or whenever, or we have an order coming in, it'll be coming in 6 months. This was how long ago it was, right? So I went and told my friend that, look, I know you're into this kind of stuff. I saw this book. I know it's popular. You know, if you'd like, right, I can go get it for you. I can go get it today. He begged me to buy that book. I mean, literally begged me to buy that book. He went right into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, gave me the money, and then a little bit extra for the trip, and begged me to get the book, which wasn't a problem, which wasn't a problem at all. I just had one small request, an insignificant request, a favor, at best. I said, look, I'm not really into this kind of stuff, but I do like to read, right? So I'm very much into gathering information, right? Just out of curiosity and interest, right? It's like exercise for your brain, guys. Reading is like exercise for your brain. That's why you find the most intelligent people are avid readers, right? Because it's like jogging for your brain. It literally feels like that, and it will fatigue you. A lot of reading will fatigue you, right? I just asked him if I could read the book for a few days. It wasn't a big book, it was about 100 pages. Can I read it for a few days and then give it back to you? He said, no problem. He said, no problem. He didn't mind. So he gave me the money, and I went straight to the bookshop, and there it was, and I bought it. Indeed, it was the only copy. It was the only copy, and it was a recent arrival, right? And because it wasn't very popular and wasn't demanded, they put it on sale, right? And they put it in the front of the store and put it on sale on discount. So practically, you were buying it for the same amount that it cost them to buy and ship it. They made no profit of this book. And if they did, they made very little. I mean, it was like $1 or something, the equivalent of $1 or $2. It was nothing. Really, it was nothing. And yes, I didn't have a dollar to spare, right? Yeah, it wasn't always what it is today, right? But anyway, my heart was still pure as it is today, bachelor for life. That I was never in doubt of. But I went and bought the book and carried it in my bag all day. Went back to my dorm room at the university. After dinner, it was just a regular, ordinary night. It was in the middle of the week. There was nothing special going on, right? Little did I know that this ordinary, casual day, I don't know if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I really cannot remember. That's how insignificant the date was. All I know is that that day changed my life and my philosophy and my outlook on life. That is the strategy that I employed from having no dollar to spare to being confident and financially independent in absolutely no time. I mean, I got up of that situation and knew what to do and how to do it. I never had a moment without money ever again. And it is due not because of the economic books that I've read, it is due to this single book, right? And I take it with the absolute seriousness that you hear in my voice. And when we read it, you will see the truth of these words emerge for yourself. So, after dinner, I began to read this book. And I tell you, I haven't stopped reading it ever since, right? I've read other books, but I have not stopped reading this book since that day. I couldn't put it down. I couldn't stop reading it. Powerful what these words were. I could not stop to read other things until I had read this. So I couldn't go on and do my coursework, economics and such before I had finished this book. This is how impactful it was. Because I knew that after reading it, it would affect how I would read and view all of the other books, right? It affected every aspect of my life. So not only did I need to read this, I needed to understand it and get it and then apply it as best as I could. And I did. And I did. I read the whole thing in a few hours. It was that day that I discovered my reading speed in its fullest, right? I read the whole thing in a few hours. I read it twice in one night. So I ran through 200 pages. It was absolute silence. When I tell you it was dead quiet, and I was inside my mind with the entire world gone. And I read that book, and then I read it again. And this is in a university dorm where it is common for me to play music and all kinds of things. I mean, I'm a teenager, bachelor for life. What did you think, right? It would have been a loud mess, but not this night. This night was dead quiet, and I was immersed in one philosophy: the art of war. The master, the grand master of the deceptive arts was teaching, and I was the student absorbing every letter of every word and every punctuation and every nuance. And then I slept and meditated on those words. I woke up and read it twice again the next day before I gave it back to the owner. By the time he got it back, the edges were bending. You know, when a book has been worked nonstop, that the edges start to bend in the cover, this is how much work I had put that book into, right? And I was sort of holding the covers, the edges together so he wouldn't notice that, I'd just done so much damage to it. The copy that I have now I laminated it with some plastic on the outside to protect it from myself and overuse, right? In truth, I had tried to memorize this book, but that was impossible. So what I tried to do was absorb the spirit that it was written in, right? And live that way, right? In perfection of strategy to achieve an outcome, right? Just efficiency of strategizing, right? Eventually, I bought my own copy and read it again and again and again, along with other, with other books as one does. There would be weeks, sometimes months, where I didn't read it, but eventually I'd be like, you know what, I need to get back into this. I need to get back into this, right? But I've kept it a secret, and I've preached its strategy in the spirit of the book, but without letting people know where the information comes from, right? To not expose my source of strength. But today we will analyze that strength together and that philosophy and that mindset, so you can see for yourself why it is that I speak the way I do and why I approach things in the way that I do. So I did read many other books on strategy, popular books, but none of them come close. None of them come close, right? Instead, what those other philosophies did, philosophies like manifestation, philosophies that encourage not taking the free lunch, which I don't know so much about that, right? Sun Tzu says that one pickle from the enemy's provender is equals to 20 times 20 pickles of your own. One grain of rice from the enemy is equal to 20 of your own, right? You must have the spirit of enterprise. You must understand the spirit of enterprise. Forage on the enemy. Bring your own supplies, but forage on the enemy, right? You must have that spirit of enterprise. This is all from Sun Tzu, right? What other philosophies have helped me to do is to disguise this philosophy, is to hide this philosophy. So I would be using phrases like the winning move is not to play the game, when Sun Tzu himself, the Grand Master, my mentor, my teacher, my preacher, right, would have put these words completely differently. And I'm going to give them to you now as he has given them to me. So you can experience them, not all, but you can experience them in their purest, right? So, we're about to start reading, right? And as we do, I want you to have a contrast in your mind, right? Apply this to the romance war, to your own relationship, right? And see if this rings true, right? As we revisit the Grand Master's words, and we will revisit them again and again and again, right? Also, I recommend that you get a copy of this yourself, right? Get a copy of this book yourself, read it daily, right? Don't lose patience if the understanding doesn't come initially. First is study, understanding comes later. And of course, the aim of this is to guide you through the romance war, right? To strengthen you, right? And to put you in a place of certain and absolute victory, right? This is what we have in mind. So, as we start reading this, one thing that I want to say is that this is not the full book, and while these lessons are in a relatively organized, or these screens are in a relatively organized way, they this is not the order that this information comes in the book, right? So the book is a complete masterpiece, and as the lessons come out in the book, they come out in an extraordinarily ordered way. He weaves what he calls the divine manipulation, right? The divine thread, and gets you to a very specific outcome. So this is not the order that they come in, but they will be efficacious for our edification today. Sun Tzu says, hence, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. What does that mean? It means to go into, when we analyze the Romance Wars, to be in competition between you and a knee bender and win that competition. That's not supreme excellence. That's not the height. That's not the level. To go into child support court and win in the child support court, to have a trial and win, to go through a divorce and win the house and win the car, that's not supreme excellence. He says supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Supreme excellence, in other words, is to prevent the baby mama, the counterpart, from attacking you in the first instance. This is the height of safety. To be in a situation where the counterpart cannot fight you, they cannot attack you. This is supreme excellence. This is what I mean by the winning move is not to play the game. To put yourself above the game and be completely and secure and protected. He continues, hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And I say it all the time. Know thyself. But the Grand Master, in his full statement, says, know thy enemy. Know the counterpart. Know that they have no limits. And know yourself too. So that when you go into there, you don't need to worry about the outcome, because you have put yourself in a position of supreme excellence, which has broken the counterpart's will to attack you to begin with. So know thyself, know yourself, know your limits, know what you like, know what you need, know what you can't live without, know where you will be able to win and lose. And in 100 battles, you do not need to fear the result. You can be certain of that outcome. The Grand Master continues, if you know yourself, but not the enemy, then for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. So this is true of most relationships. It's always a tit for tat. You do this, they counter with that, right? Hence the name, the counterpart. You counter them, they re-counter. So it's always a tit for tat. And you win some and you lose some. And the reason for this, as is stated, 100% correct by the Grand Master himself, Sun Tzu, if you know yourself, but you don't know the extent to which the counterpart will go, It also indicates that the counterpart knows themselves, but they don't know the extent to which you will go. And so you win one and you lose another, which in itself is a failure. This is not supreme excellence. This is not the standard. The standard, it consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. What they call the art of fighting without fighting. This is where it originates. From the Grand Master's words himself. He continues, if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, if you are living in ignorance, you will succumb in every battle. This is the worst case scenario. To have no knowledge of self, to have no self-control, to not know where your limits are. And this is the level where most knee benders are. These are men who believe that they can be the head of a household and run a company and attend every football game for all 6 of their children at the same time. They are overworked, they are overextended, and they are constantly losing. And it all starts because you do not know yourself. And I ask the question every day, do you want to be a father? Are you sure you want to wear that tutu, that Spider-Man costume, that Santa Claus costume every single year for 18, 20 years? Is this what you really want? Know thyself and know thy enemy. And in 100 battles, you will not need to fear the results. These are the words from the Grand Master himself. Take them to heart, meditate upon them, and apply them in your own affairs. And victory, I say victory, is guaranteed. And I guarantee that not just from my own knowledge, but from a lifetime of personal experience. Sun Tzu says, that we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. 1, he will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. 2, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. 3, he will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. 4, he will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. 5, he will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. Let's analyze this part. These are very important words, especially for you if you are going to be engaging in the romance wars, in these relationships that are going to destroy you and ruin you. Number 1, the Grandmaster states very obviously, he will win who knows when to fight and knows when not to fight. This is where you save and lose your energy and your resources. You fight the wrong battle, you lose. You fight the right battle, you win. And in between that is no fighting at all, knowing when not to fight, when to step back, when to retreat. Sun Tzu also says in another part, right, that he doesn't say exactly, but he implies you need to retreat without feeling any shame, without feeling any guilt. It has to be a strategic move to retreat or whether to advance. Retreating is just as much a tactic as attacking. You could be setting a trap and letting the counterpart walk right into it, or they could be setting a trap pretending that they are retreating from you and allowing you to attack, and when you attack, they will find you guilty and put you in prison. It happens all the time, right? When you've been instigated and you should walk away, but you attack. And if you don't know When is the right time to do what? You're going to be finished. You're going to be finished. Meditate on these words. The second point he says, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. This word handle is ambiguous, right? Which means there's no really clear way of understanding. It's a double-edged sword. To handle means, on the one hand, to manage. So these are your troops, right? And to handle means to fight against, to oppose, right? So there's two situations here where you have inferior troops and the counterpart has superior power, superior troops, superior resources. And if you know how to handle, how to evade fighting against more powerful people and how to survive that, then this is an essential for your victory. Simultaneously, if you are in a position of power and are being attacked by a weaker vessel, or a weaker person, or a weaker entity, and you attack them and win, but don't complete that victory, they may return by attacking your personality, by attacking the very victory that you have won and undermining that. It happens all the time. So you need to know how to handle people that are more powerful than you, more richer than you, stronger than you, in a better position than you, have more education and more experience than you. How do you deal with them? Remember, supreme excellence isn't going there and beating them. Supreme excellence is in overcoming them without the need to fight them. Because if you fight powerful people, you're going to lose. And if you beat up weaker people, you're going to lose. So you have to know how to handle both with equal measure and skill. 3, he will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout its ranks. What this means is that you need to have a standard of excellence, and this standard of excellence must be maintained by everyone throughout your organization. And you set that standard and you maintain that standard. What you don't want is to have a traitor amongst your midst, right? Doing an inside job, undermining your moves, your authority, your plans. And this is the counterpart, right? So you might be moving in one direction and the counterpart will pull a switch and force a move in another direction. You might be trying to get a promotion and the counterpart will sabotage that because they are not of the same spirit that you are. And if you don't have that spirit throughout all your ranks, if everyone is not working to the same goal and upholding the same standards, that means you have a mole in your organization and you got to remove that mole because they'll eat you from the inside out. This is why when men leave divorces or when men leave marriages and they start functioning with one spirit, holding one standard, they thrive and they succeed because they don't have a counterpart undermining those standards. These are words that are over 2,500 years old, and they are still true today. You need to have that standard. You need to maintain it. That's why my standard is the vasectomy. And I hold that standard and I don't flinch from it because I know that if you say you're a bachelor and you cannot see the validity and the value of being a vasectomite, then I know that you are not of the same spirit and you cannot be among the ranks of the vasectomites. You must be in your proper place, the benders. Right? So you must have the same spirit. You must maintain that standard of excellence that was set by the Grand Master himself, that is followed by me, the master of the deceptive arts. Number 4, he will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. Preparation is the key to confidence. knowing what you are going to do before you do it, and all that remains is the execution. To have the plan already laid out, to have all the details in the plan. And the more details you have in your plan, the better your plan. You need to have details, details, details. You need to be ready and prepared. You need to have your plan, your materials, your resources, your money, your troops. You need to have everything ready before even the enemy arrives. When they arrive, they have to get you. You have to be all set up and ready to go, defenses mounted, weapons pointing, soldiers ready to go, armor cleaned, pots and pans packed, right? Oxen, horses, wagons, all ready to go before the enemy even arrives. Because when they arrive, they are going to be exhausted and in a haste, while you will be ready, rested, prepared, focused, and then you will obliterate them. It will be a simple, straightforward, standard operation. But if you arrive and you find that the enemy is prepared and waiting for you, and you still have to set up while their guns are blazing, this is what happens all the time in the court of law, where she has all of her evidence, all of her DMs, all of your messages, screenshot, blown up, exposed with just what you said and nothing that she said. Because she's prepared and she's ready, while you are still trying to go through your phone to find a conversation thread, and all you can see is messages from her acting like a victim and you attacking her. Because she is prepared and you are not. And you are trying to get prepared in the middle of the battle. Catastrophe. He will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. Meditate on these words. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. The sovereign of a country is the ruler, the person who is in charge and makes the superseding decisions. When it comes to the bender and the counterpart is the one who makes the superseding decisions. Ultimately, when you are married and have kids, the wife and kids, they control the situation. So if you have the military capacity that we've discussed, you are strategic, you are organized, you are prepared, you know when to fight, when not to fight. Your troops have the same spirit, the same goal, and your counterpart keeps coming in, trying to change plans, trying to change the look, trying to change the design, trying to change the furniture, trying to change everything that they can. This is called interference, right? This is a devastating military move when your counterpart interferes with you in the name of love, right? These are not your enemies coming out to take you out. This is the person with whom you are in cahoots with, interfering in the operations for which they should not be interfering with. You are the military arm, right? You are the strategic arm. The sovereign should be the political arm, right? And by them interfering you into these parts where they're not supposed to be, what they do is they politicize a part of the government that should be, or a part of the state that should be functioning autonomously. And this is why a lot of men fail, where they know what they got to do and how to do it and how much time it'll take, and they're putting in that work, making those videos. And here comes the counterpart talking about quality time, right? That's interference. And that is going to cause failure, and is ultimately going to cost you your victory. The good fighters of old, the Grandmaster says, first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat. then waited for the opportunity of defeating the enemy. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. Thus, the good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy. Hence the saying, one may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Let's analyze this in terms of the Romance wars. The first part is the good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat, then waited for the opportunity of defeating the enemy. And I say it all the time, the vasectomy puts you beyond the possibility of defeat in the Romance wars, right? Freezing your seed puts you beyond the possibility of making a mistake, of getting somebody, the wrong person, inseminated and pregnant, right? So you put yourself beyond the opportunity, the possibility of defeat. Then you wait. Then you wait for the enemy to expose themselves. So you've got your vasectomy, and now the counterpart comes out and says, hey, I'm pregnant. Now the enemy has exposed themselves, and you can obliterate them. You can remove them, right? You can avoid them. You can protect yourself, right? Because you have put yourself beyond the possibility of defeat, right? To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. Get a vasectomy. If you get that vasectomy, now I'm talking strictly about the Romance wars. If you get that vasectomy, right? When the counterpart exposes themselves, right? They will give you the tools you need to leave in that moment. You will then say, well, you're pregnant. That means you have been unfaithful. This is now the moment where I strike the decisive blow, one decisive blow, and I leave and disappear forever, right? To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands. No one is going to go get that vasectomy for you. This is your responsibility. To secure yourself against defeat and harm is up to you, right? You cannot ask the counterpart to take away an advantage and give them to you, right? Or any advantages and give them to you. You have to get your own advantages and secure them for yourself. The good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy. This is so true. You can be absolutely safe and protected as I am now, but unless I'm given a clear gap, a clear opportunity, a space to enter and strike that blow, unless the enemy, the counterpart, makes a mistake in the Romance war, they inadvertently sign a prenup or something to that effect, right? They have a kid, you find out the DNA test proves that kid is not yours, right? Before you sign the birth certificate, right? You find out that they have a tremendous amount of debt before you sign that marriage certificate, right? It is only after they let you know about their debt and their circumstances that you can act, right? Which means you can get your vasectomy and never know the circumstances of the counterpart until it's too late, right? And many men are in this situation. You never really know what the counterpart has done. You never know their history, their past, until it's too late, until you're already in that marriage contract, right? And then you cannot make certain of defeating them. You cannot be sure, right? But what you can be absolutely sure of is that you have the capacity to protect yourself. Hence the saying, one may know how to conquer, one may know how to be successful without being able to do it. I alluded to this before, saying that you could be standing there in the courtroom, in the child support court, in the family court, right? Because that's also a family court, in the court of public opinion, and have all the right answers, right? And have the solution to the problem, right? And not be able to execute those solutions, right? And not be able to do what you need to do to get to where you are because you are being interfered with by the counterpart, right? So the responsibility of protecting yourself is up to you. And once you are prepared, all you do is you wait for them to make the move, to expose themselves as a cheater, to expose themselves as an addict or an alcoholic, to expose themselves as a baby mama, to expose their tremendous debt, in which case, there you have your moment. The moment which they thought would be a weakening blow to you, but because you have put yourself beyond the possibility of defeat, you are prepared and waiting for them who are unprepared, victory is a certain outcome for you. Sun Tzu says, what the ancients called a clever fighter is one who not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. Hence his victories bring him neither reputation for wisdom nor credit for courage. He wins his battles by making no mistakes. Making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of victory, for it means conquering an enemy that is already defeated. Hence, the skillful fighter puts himself in a position which makes defeat impossible, but does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. Thus, it is in war that the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights and afterwards looks for victory. And this is really what it's all about, right? This is what it's really all about. Let's analyze these words. What the ancients, these were my people many years ago, what we called the clever fighter is one who doesn't just win all the time, but wins so easily, right? He wins all the time so easily. Whatever they throw at you, you just defeated, right? In such a way that you don't get any recognition or praise for it. It's just considered normal, right? Your attacker must see no difference in your change when they no difference or change in you when they come and attack you. When the counterpart says my period is late, I think I'm pregnant, there should be no change. There should be no change. I have a vasectomy, right? If they come at you with anything, you can just say, I had a vasectomy, right? If they indicate infidelity, you just tell them, I have a vasectomy. You're the one taking all the risk. You want to go cheat? You go cheat on a person with no vasectomy and see where you end up, right? That way, nothing changes and your reputation remains the same, right? Remains the same. It remains unchanged. All right, so even if they go and say, well, you're in the court of law, you're the father, I don't believe you got a vasectomy, fine, get a DNA test. The DNA will prove it, right? Get a DNA test, 100% negative, end of story, right? Nothing changes. The Grandmaster says he wins his battles by making no mistakes. Making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of victory. Get a vasectomy. It guarantees victory in the romance wars. Freeze your sperm. Freeze your sperm so you don't get anybody pregnant by accident, right? Establish the certainty of victory, right? Because then it means conquering an enemy, defeating an enemy that's already been defeated. Right? If your victory is already established, you are invincible. Whatever they throw at you, you cannot be defeated. Right? Hence, the skillful fighter puts himself in a position which makes defeat impossible, but does not miss the opportunity of defeating your enemy. Get a vasectomy. Get a vasectomy. I cannot tell you how many times that I have to say this, and I will say it. Get a vasectomy, right? This puts you in a position which makes defeat impossible. And while you wait for the counterpart to make their move, and you know they will, they're always up to something. You can always be sure of that counterpart is up to something. And you put yourself in the right position so that when they make their devastating move, you can counter it with your own. Thus it is in war that the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights and afterwards looks for victory. Very clearly, very, very clearly, you see this all the time in the romance war. All the time. This is exactly what men do. He who is destined to defeat, this is you, the knee bender, first fights and then looks for victory. You don't even know what you're fighting for half the time. All these arguments that you've been in and you don't know what you're arguing for. All these little wars, all these little fires that you put out that you don't even know what you're fighting for or putting out those fires for. But specifically, let's talk about what happens after insemination and pregnancies. This is exactly the moment where you have lost the fight, right? This is exactly what the Grandmaster is talking about when he says, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights. So first you get the woman pregnant, then you have the kids. And then afterwards, you're looking for the measure of success. You're looking for your economic success. You're looking to be making more money as quickly as you can. You're looking to be successful. You're looking to be at the top of the food chain. You want to be respected, but you gotta wear a tutu, right? You've already put yourself in a position of defeat. You've already started the fight, and now you're trying to find little bits of success here and there. Oh, we got 50-50 custody. 50-50 custody is not success. It's not success. You should be seeing your kids every day. But you got those kids with the wrong person, and now you're trying to get some type of victory, and you're only going to get 50-50, right? When what you should have done, like the victorious strategist, is only to seek the battle, only to go into the romance wars. Listen to that. After the victory has been won, after you get your vasectomy, after you are sure that you will be successful in this romance war, only then do you enter the game. Only then do you start dating. Only then do you start relationships. Right? When they ask, do you want to have kids? Then you can mention, hey, I've already frozen my sperm, billions of them, and I had a vasectomy. So if we do have kids, if I do have kids, it's not going to happen by accident, and it's definitely not happening on your terms. Right? Thus, it is that in war, the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won. So you have already got your vasectomy, you've already healed, you're ready to go, you are protected, you have won. You have won. But if you go in there without a vasectomy, then you are destined to defeat. Your demise is foreseen. It is foreseen by the Grand Master before I foresaw it. It is guaranteed. I brought the statistics. I showed the statistics earlier in the week. Please watch the videos. Thank you for the support. But I already provided the statistics. Your defeat is nearly guaranteed. And vasectomy puts you in a position in which makes defeat impossible. In another part of the book, I have an asterisk and a part of a ellipsis actually that I'm planning to remove from the screen, so I hope it doesn't actually come through. But Sun Tzu says, when you engage in actual fighting, this is from a different section of the book, but it says, if victory is long in coming, then men's weapons will grow dull and their ardor will be damped. If you lay siege to a town, you will exhaust your strength. Again, if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. Now, when your weapons are dull and your ardor damped, when your strength exhausted and your treasure spent, then other chieftains will spring up to take advantage of your extremity. Then no matter however wise will be then no man, I beg your pardon, then no man, however wise, will be able to avert the consequences that must ensue. Let's look at that. So now you are in the child support court. Now you are fighting with your baby mama. Now she's having an affair and you're arguing with her, right? When you engage in actual fighting, in the actual romance war, if your victory is long in coming, you'll get tired, you'll get exhausted, you'll get weaker, you'll grow broke, you'll run out of money, strength, resources, right? It says, if you lay siege to a town, so if you then attack places that are heavily guarded, heavily garrisoned, heavily protected, women that have husbands, women that have boyfriends, if you are going out trying to date these people, cold approach, that kind of thing, right? Where people are heavily on their guard or heavily defensive, all you're going to do is exhaust your strength, right? So all you're doing is, when you are engaging in these conflicts, these romance wars, these arguments, these trials, these when you're filing these motions, these appeals against and for, right? When you are trying to get your 50-50 custody, the longer this goes on for, the longer you are in this romance war, the 20 years guaranteed, is only going to weaken you, and your weapons will grow dull. Your ardor will be damped, right? The Grandmaster continues. He says again, if the campaign is protracted, if it goes on and on and on for a long period of time, the resources of the state, you are the state, you are your own government, right? You're a bachelor, you are an independent entity, you are a state. Your resources will not be equal to the strain that the counterpart will put on you in a long-term protracted war. He continues to say, the Grand Master, now when your weapons are dull and your ardor damped, when your strength is exhausted and your money is finished, then other men will come up and take advantage of your situation. Men who got their money, men who just came out of monk mode, men who been saving, men who've been killing it in the gym, men who have vasectomies and are not going through baby mama drama, men who are not on alimony, men who are not on child support, men who are not supporting two households, one of which they don't live in. Those men will come in and they will fight you with advantage, and they will destroy you. You will have no resources, no means to defend yourself. This is foreseen. This is foreseen. Then he says, then other chieftains will spring up to take advantage of your extremity. You will be in an extreme situation. Child support, alimony, divorce, lawyer fees, car payments, house payments, school payments, tuition, school fees. You keep naming those things, they are going to finish you. It is guaranteed. This is just another piece of evidence trying to convince you to go and get a vasectomy. It's not in my interest to say this. I already got mine. I am just preaching the truth to you. Then no man, however wise, however skilled, however capable, will be able to avert the consequences. Consequences, negative results, the negative outcomes that must is a word that guarantees the outcome. They must ensue, and you will suffer the consequences of those outcomes. Sun Tzu says, thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged war. It is only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war that can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Thus we have heard of stupid haste in war. Cleverness has never been associated with a long delay. Or with long delays. I see I made a mistake there. That's why I misread it. I apologize for that writing mistake. What the Grand Master says here is that we've seen many people rush into the romance war and overstay, right? You go into there because you want to run game. You're a bender. You believe that getting a woman is the ultimate success, and no man is successful without a woman. A woman. We've heard your philosophy many times. So you rush into the romance war, and now you're in it 20 years. You'll be married for 10, get divorced, and then you still got 8 more years of child support. Cleverness has never been associated with long delays. All you've done is delay the inevitable. All roads lead to the bachelor life. If you're married for 20 years and you get divorced, guess what you are now? A bachelor again. If you're in a relationship for 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, 100 years, and that relationship ends, guess where you are now? A bachelor. If you're married and your wife passes away, God forbid, guess what you are now? A bachelor. All roads lead to the bachelor life. And what you have done is you have gone the long way around of delaying the inevitable. That's all you're doing is delaying the inevitable outcome. It is foreseen by the Grand Master. It is foreseen by me. He wrote this book thousands of years ago, associated with the political times and the political trepidations of those times. And now those same circumstances are repeating themselves here in the Romance War. And the Grandmaster's words are proving true now more than they have ever been. There is no instance of a country. Remember, in this case, you are the state, you are the countries. Of a country having benefited from a prolonged war. No one of you, none of you, not a single one of you is going to benefit by spending 20 years in the child support court or paying alimony for 30 years. None of you are going to benefit from that, right? A protracted war is the worst case scenario, right? It is only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war who can understand the profitable way of carrying out. What the Grandmaster here is saying is that divorced men make the best bachelors. It is only those who have been through the dark dimension that will understand that there is no way of having this thing done successfully. Therefore, they all go for temporary, some even non-exclusive relationships. They go into the romance war temporarily to gain whatever benefit it is that they gain, and then they remove themselves, right? The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy. Neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. You don't need to be spending 20 years in the romance wars. You don't need to be with that person 10 years, 20 years, 15 years. You don't need to be in that marriage, right? Cleverness is not associated with long delays or long relationships or long conflicts, right? It is at that point where you start to experience tremendous losses, right? And it's those losses that men lament after a relationship. They always say, "Man, I should have left it 10 years ago. I should have left it 5 years ago." And the divorced men, the bachelor 2.0, he who returns, they know not to stay in those relationships past their due. They know when to end it and to end it permanently. It is only the young bender who still has to learn this lesson, and the man who is stuck in that marriage is learning it today. You've been in there for 20 years and you haven't had intimacy with your wife in 17 years. All you're doing is paying those bills while she has a boyfriend or two on the side. And if you dare get a girlfriend to counter her boyfriend, she'll sue you and destroy your life. She'll destroy your life, and you know it, right? You've been in there for too long. You've raised a second levy and a third one and a fourth one, right? And now you're suffering. Now you're in child support, 20 years. Now you're paying alimony, 20 years. Now you've lost your retirement fund. No retirement for you. You'll be working till you're 75. Miserable, man. That's miserable. When you could finish working at 60, 65 and live like a king for 30, 40, 50 years. Die when you're in your 90s, right? A reasonable amount of time to live, but comfortably, well, secure, in peace. And that's where we're trying to get you to. And the Grandmaster will demonstrate that in our final slide. To be near the goal while the enemy is still far from it. To wait at ease while the enemy is toiling and struggling. To be well fed while the enemy is famished. This is what it's about. This is where we're trying to get you. This is where the philosophy puts you. It puts you in an advantage. It puts you at the goals that you're trying to achieve, at the success that you want to have, while the enemy is far from their own goals and far from you. To put you at ease and comfort and relaxation, at inner peace, while you see the enemy is toiling and struggling, suffering with these kids, suffering with these bills, complaining about taxes and the economy. You've got 4 kids and you're blaming inflation. Have you ever seen a situation like that where somebody's got 3, 4 kids and they're struggling to make ends meet and they think it's because of inflation? And it's like, no, 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 there's nothing wrong with the economy. It's those 3 kids that are spending all your money on roadblocks or whatever, right? To be well fed while the enemy is famished. This is the purpose. To keep you safe, to keep you successful, to keep you at ease, to keep you from starving. I told you that there was a time in the ancient one's life, a time before time, eons ago, when I could not even put together a single dollar, where my philosophy of life was not clear. And then I read the words by the Grand Master as we have read them today. And they clarified, and I knew what was meant to be my goal. I was not meant to be poor. I was meant to have money. While my enemies, those who tried to attack me from a position of poverty. I'm meant to be in a secure sanctum of solitude, warm, comfortable, clean, and well lit, while my enemies are still struggling to find their place. I was meant to be well fed, healthy, food, not overweight from eating preservatives made from factories with chemicals, but also not starving from not having enough nutrition, right? And it was the words of the Grand Master that I bring to you today that promise you that the outcome will be that you will be near the goal while your enemies are so far from it. You will be at ease while your enemies are toiling and struggling, and you will be well fed with comfort and delicious food while your enemies are famished. This is the strategy. This is the philosophy. This is the art of war, and this is the way of the bachelor. These words, this philosophy, was written thousands of years ago. And I, for one, have compared it against many other philosophies. And I've read, as I said, and I'm not saying it in a braggadocious way, I have read so many books. Great, brilliant, magnificent books, but none of them put me near my goal and put my enemies far from their goals. None of them put me at ease and made my enemies struggle and toil. None of those books made sure that I was well fed while I watched my enemies starve and be famished. This is the art of war. This is what success is. This is what happens, as I described before, when a counterpart is unfaithful and you cut off your reverence and your protection and your provision and you leave them to go out and fend for themselves. What happens is they find themselves far from the goal. They find themselves famished and they find themselves struggling and toiling because they did not follow this philosophy. And wherever they go, they will find others who are not following the same philosophy. Buy this book, read it, meditate on it as I have. And I offer it to you, its wisdom, its guidance, its knowledge, its information, and its truth. And I offer it to you today as we have analyzed it. There is no contradiction here. And there will be no contradiction here, unlike all of the other words that we have read this week alone, where all of them have contradicted. These words flow together in what the Grand Master calls the divine manipulation of the thread. Poetry. These words are not just true, they are right, they are beautiful, and they will work for you. Apply them in every area of your life. Use these strategies as I have for eons since I was a boy. These strategies have made me invincible, even against older, more capable men, because I return to words that are older than they are, to a philosophy and an understanding that supersedes even the oldest man alive. The author died even before the Bible and Quran were even written. This is a statement of fact. I'm not taking away from other philosophies or other beliefs. I'm simply telling you. Islam is 1,500 years old and Christianity is almost 2,000. This author is reported to have died 2,500 years ago. This is a statement of fact, and it is not a challenge or an insult. It is simply a statement of fact. It is also true to say that Chinese civilization can date their existence back to 7,000 years, and the Egyptians 5,000 years, maybe more. We have the numbers 1000 BC and so forth for a reason. And these words were written before the Christ. These words are true. These are not new modern strategies that have no understanding and comprehension of human interactions, as you have seen for yourself. The Grand Master, my mentor, he who filled the spirit of organization and of setting standards and of maintaining the standards and knowing truth, identifying contradiction. His words took me as a boy, 18, 19 years old, and forged me into the Ancient One. And I speak to you today with clarity, with knowledge, with education, with understanding, with truth, with strategy. And you can put my words against any modern philosophy, and I tell you, get a vasectomy, and you can put that vasectomy against any other medical treatment, against any other type of contraception available on earth today and in the future, and that vasectomy will stand the test of time every time. This I guarantee. This I guarantee, because the words of wisdom that inspired me to get that move, to get that vasectomy, to put myself beyond the possibility of defeat in the Romance wars, are here in front of you today for you to analyze and see the truth of all the lies. If you see lies, identify them and compare these words in your own life and see if they don't ring true. And I assure you, I guarantee you, they will stand the test of time. This is the Ancient One. This is the Bachelor Supreme, the master of the deceptive arts. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your attention. I truly and humbly appreciate it. Have a nice day.